from the 3rd century until the 6th. An unprecedented era of turmoil and population movement took hold of Eurasia. From Britain to China, due to a myriad of reasons, be they political, social, technological, environmental, entire nations went on the move. In the process, destabilising and destroying much of the old order. Most famously, seeing the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. But also causing similar collapses in China and the rest of the old world too. In what is now Russia, fierce confederations of steppe nomads rode to war. In mainland Europe, barbarian warlords entered into uneasy alliances with settled Roman populations. And in the North Sea, Germanic soldiers crossed over the Channel to carve out new lives on foreign shores. Today, we know this era as the Migration Period, a time of transition when many of the European nations we know today began to form. Yet, in recent years, this entire concept of a Great Migration has increasingly been called into question, with some archaeologists questioning the extent to which movement really did take place, if at all. The archaeology and the history don't always match up, far from it. Now, however, in 2020, in what archaeologists are calling the most significant discovery in Germany in 4 decades, an intact migration-era high-status burial has been located and excavated, complete with all the grave goods expected of a king, and 4 instances of what may be human sacrifice, with some even suggesting some kind of a ritualistic death cult. The site is revealing astonishing new insights into this long gone by age. Let's take a look. Hello guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. It's Magellan TV, the premier documentary streaming service on the web. For just a small monthly fee, you can find thousands of documentaries on almost any subject you can think of, streamed directly to your phone, your tablet and your smart TV. My current recommendation, and one which I think all you archaeology buffs out there will love, is The Neanderthal in Us. It's part of a whole playlist on the rise of mankind. I've teamed up with the guys at Magellan to offer you an exclusive month-long free trial. Head on over to try.magellantv.com/Pete Kelly History, or click on my link in the description below. Now back to the early Middle Ages. Archaeological discoveries are often made in the unlikeliest of contexts. Chance finds nobody could have predicted. Thus, when builders in what is now Saxony in northern Germany set about laying the foundations for a chicken farm, they found much more than they'd bargained for. The cemetery of a royal court, undisturbed for 1500 years, since the great age of migrations at the end of the Roman Empire. Like other Germanic royal burials from the early Middle Ages, the earliest discovered being that of the Frankish ruler Childeric, uncovered in the 1600s. The most famous being the kingly burial in East Anglia, famous for its Sutton helmet. No human remains were found, a funeral pyre likely having been burned for the king. But much other high-status material goods did survive. His ashes, thought to have been deposited in an urn at the centre of the gravesite, surrounded by later burials. Originally, like Redwald's grave in East Anglia, this Saxon site probably would have been a burial mound, though one which was heavily ploughed over and damaged in the 1500 years since it was made. Indeed, the only reason the grave survived at all is because of its unique sunken position in the ground, sitting in a natural hollow which over time was covered over by around 4 feet of sediment, providing a protective layer. And this warrior king wasn't alone. Surrounding him in the afterlife were found the graves of 60 individuals, a princely royal court, later buried around this central figure, perhaps to honour him. The remains of 11 animals were found, including cattle, horses and dogs, all symbols of wealth in traditional Germanic society, along with ornate grave goods, including expertly carved metalwork and trade goods from far away, suggesting links to the East as well as the West, the post-Roman world as well as the Germanic one of old. This is a well-preserved glass bowl made by Gallo-Roman glassworkers along the Rhine Valley. Several silver gilded cups, a sword and a shield boss. These were rich items. An elaborate vestment clasp and pieces of snagged textiles indicate the presence of a Germanic people. But which one? Current suggestions range from the Longobards, the Alemanni, Thuringians and Saxons, maybe some from all. This Germanic god statue is thought to be around 1800 years old. Buried alongside its owner perhaps, a sacred object passed down through the generations. During the height of the Roman Empire, in the first few centuries AD, the Germanic tribes beyond the Rhine remained one of the few people left unconquered, until eventually they grew in military power and societal organisation, utilising much Roman infrastructure. Until their strength became so much that they inherited Europe when Rome crumbled. Spilling over the Rhine to establish successor states all over the continent. They were the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Saxons, Huns, Lombards, Angles, and Vandals. And eventually, they would contribute to or form many of the national identities we know today. But when did this gravesite date from? Well, this coin is a surefire giveaway, dating from the end of the 5th and the beginning of the 6th centuries, the time of the Roman Emperor Zeno. Yet Zeno didn't rule from Rome. The Western Empire was already dead by this time, so too the Hunnic Empire which preceded it. This cemetery dates from the chaotic time immediately following the decline of both, a time of new coalitions and a new order, when only the strongest political units survived. Zeno was Eastern Roman Emperor, ruling from Constantinople. Yet this location is still well within what was typically considered to be Germania, outside the direct reach of the Western Empire. The burials here seem to have been deposited generation after generation. Here, these people may have stayed put. No doubt fighting wars in order to do so. Of course, one thing is abundantly clear from the gravesite. The tendrils of Christianity wouldn't reach this far over the Rhine for many centuries to come. This was a pagan burial, with all signs pointing to the large bronze cauldron at the centre of the tomb being the focal point of this sacred landscape. For the cauldron is surrounded by the remains of 6 women, buried in a radial alignment out from the pot, like the hands of a clock or spokes of a wheel. A symbol prevalent throughout ancient Germanic ritualistic art and society, likely having deep symbolic meaning. But who were these women around the Lord? It's been suggested they may have been wives or concubines, a royal harem, or slaves. And what was the nature of their death? It seems unlikely that they all died of natural causes at the same time as the central figure, which raises the question of human sacrifice. There is later written evidence of Germanic human sacrifice witnessed by the Arab travel writer Ibn Fadlan on the Volga River in the early 10th century, which involved heavily drugged slave girls being killed to be with their master in the afterlife. And maybe a similar event happened here too. We know from the Roman writer Tacitus that Germans of his time practiced human sacrifice, particularly in times of war, though in truth much more research is needed to get to the bottom of this mystery. Ritualistic death cult? Maybe. Really, it's too early to say. The cauldron has been lifted out of the ground and will be studied carefully. All the items are being analysed with the hopes of gaining new insights into the migration era. Though the location of the cemetery remains a secret in order to deter thieves, it's thought a royal centre may have been located nearby. Only time will tell. As always, investigations continue. You've been watching Archaeology News. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.